On the 1st of July 2017, I visited the North of England Institute of Mining and Mechanical Engineering with NTCIC as part of the When Yesterday Was Young project. We visited the institute so that we could further our research into mining history and gain a greater understanding of the project. When we arrived, we were greeted by our host and tour guide, Simon Brooks, who is a fountain of knowledge. He talked to us for about 2 hours, starting with the beginning of the birth of mining back in the Ice Age, through the Romans, through Elizabethan, right through to the present day. Simon, he was an absolute superstar to talk to. He taught us all so much just from memory as well. It was really quite inspirational to meet somebody like Simon who just knew everything off his head. Simon introduced us to some new ideas as well that we hadn't found before. For example, Simon said that in the north, women never worked in the mine. Now, our understanding of it was that before 1842, women and children did work in the mines. However, Simon said to us through oral history that in the northeast, women never worked in the mines because it was really a sense of pride for the men. There was obviously other reasons that men didn't want women working in the mines. So that was something we found rather controversial, but also rather intriguing to know. There's no hard facts to back that up, but it's certainly an interesting point of view. So Simon, like I say, he talked to us about the birth of mining right from the Ice Age, which was absolutely brilliant. He spoke in great depth about how mining really made the Northeast. If it wasn't for mining, certainly County Durham wouldn't have as many towns as it has now. And if it wasn't for mining engineers, that would also be true. Because without mining engineers, we would never have been able to do some deep mining. Because it was the engineers that made this possible throughout their sketches and their inventions to make mining safer. Before we did deep mining, it was mainly just bell pit mining, which is where you just dig around, you dig into the floor and you dig around, getting all the coal or whatever it is you're mining until it collapses on you and you can't do any more mining because it's collapsed. Or you do some drift mining, which is where you just dig into a hill and keep going likewise until it collapses. So really, when the mining engineers came about, it really shed a new light on mining because we could do the deep mining, which is like the Dean and Chapter Colliery, where you can go thousands of feet underground, and it's still safe because they've put in place all sorts of different struts, and they've invented steam winding shafts and things like that to get miners in and out of the ground. So really, the mining industry did bring a boom to the northeast, and that's evident the amount of pits that were around here in County Durham, in Newcastle, and pretty much all over. It really is evident that mining created the northeast. I think that's a fair comment to say. We found out quite a lot about Nicholas Wood also, who really is a bit of a forgotten person. He's not a forgotten person in history, but he's not talked about so much as other people. And that's because Nicholas Wood, he was very much the brains behind operations, and he'd say his bit, he'd contribute, but then he wouldn't be one to step into the light and shout about it. He'd let other people do that. And Nicholas Wood, he's a very inspirational character because he was so passionate about education. And Nicholas Wood was training around 300 people a year when Durham University was only training around 50 people a year. So he's quite an inspirational character because he also brought education into the communities. As opposed to people having to travel to them, he brought it into the community, so it was people around here that had the education. Obviously, when they built the Miners' Hall in 1876, people did go to the Miners' Hall for education, but they didn't discriminate. So if somebody couldn't afford the education, they'd still be able to get the education. There has been noted cases where that was the case. Obviously, there were fees and things, but if you couldn't pay them, it wasn't too much of a problem. And I think that all goes back to Nicholas Wood's philosophy, which is absolutely brilliant. We also seen some original notebooks from John Buddle. Now, John Buddle was a leading mining engineer, and his notebooks are just exquisite. His handwriting, his drawings are so in-depth, and they're all done by hand, which is mind-blowing. You can see some images of these on the When Yesterday Was Young Facebook page and the When Yesterday Was Young website, which honestly, I checked them out because they're absolutely brilliant. And to think that he did it all by hand is absolutely, it's just mind-blowing. Um, we also found out that the Institute was the birthplace of Newcastle University. They started delivering the first qualification at the Institute, and then they later went on to building the university, which is something quite interesting, really. The Institute had a number of different rooms. You had the Wood Hall, which was built in memorial for Nicholas Wood, which is it's a library. It's an absolutely amazing room, and there's so many books there. A lot of books that are only there, and they only exist there. You had a lecture theatre, which is a traditional lecture theatre, which I'm sure many a talk about mining engineering has been had, as well as modern day things. When we were there on Saturday, there was a lecture about magicians and the community that they've got. So it's great to see these heritage buildings being used in the modern day now by all sorts of different people. I think that's certainly something that heritage buildings should be used for, because it gets new people into the building, and otherwise they just wouldn't be used anymore. There was the Neville Hall as well, which was an absolutely stunning room. And like I say, there's images of all these rooms on the When Yesterday Was Young Facebook and website. The visit was definitely, it was worth going without a shadow of a doubt, because we learned so much about the history of mining. We didn't find out too much about the Dean and Chapter Colliery, which is what we initially went for, but I think that was certainly made up for in what we did learn and what we did experience at the Institute. I definitely would recommend going there. It's an absolutely gorgeous hall. They are having a lot of refurbishments done at the moment, so it's not going to be open to the public as much, but there's such a wealth of knowledge in both the people that work there, such as Simon Brooks, but also the books that are there. There's thousands of books, and it's absolutely amazing, and they're all available to access. However, for the project, we didn't get too much about the Dean and Chapter mine, but we did get certainly some information that will definitely be used as part of the project.